bed.
okay. Let's go with your definition. Let's go with your definition. Explain how how the swing rhythm was created off of that definition.
If you go and look at
No,
European
no, no.
folk
Go
music,
ahead. Go ahead.
right,
No,
you
the
will
swing
hear
rhythm
your
didn't exist before then.
right. Swung rhythms are all over all folk music all over the world.
Give me an
Humpty
example. Give
Dumpty
me an
sat on a
example. Give
wall.
me an
Humpty
example. Give me an
Dumpty had a
example.
great fall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. That's a swing rhythm.
It's not the
Uh,
same
da,
as
da, da,
jazz.
da, it's because in jazz you've got that, and then you've got syncopated beats, and they come directly from the marches, Sousa
Uh,
marches, bum bum
listen,
2/4. So I'm clicking on the upbeat.
what's the music? What? Okay, what is the what? No, but see, you again. You're not answering my question. You're not
I
being
am. I'm
honest.
being
No,
totally
you're
honest.
not.
I'm
You're
trying
not
to
being honest.
explain to you,
You're not
and you have not given me any
because you're
examples of
not
any
making
of
you
this.
because you're not being honest about the history. That's why I'm not giving you an opportunity because you're making up stuff. That's
Give
what
me
you're
the
doing.
rhythm that black people invented that you
I
think
just
jazz.
told you this
What swing?
the swing rhythm and multiple rhythms that are not related to jazz. The funk
All right.
rhythm.
So, what's the difference between the black American jazz swing? I know what it is, you see, but I want
Okay.
you to tell me what the difference is
I don't
between the
even know
jazz
what a white
swing
swing
rhythm.
rhythm is. You tell me. What
Right.
is the white
What's the
swing rhythm?
difference?
What you
What
tell
is the
me.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall.
So
Da,
you can
da, da,
play.
da, 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 da. So when you listen to jazz, it's going bum, da, 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 da. Later on,
No.
Humpty Dumpty is written in trochaic meter, characterized by a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable, the dum. This creates a bouncy, marching rhythm, often following an AABB rhyme scheme. It typically consists of 4-line stanzas, quatrains, with a falling rhythm. Trochaic meter is a poetic rhythm consisting of a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable, thumda, often described as long-short or falling meter. It creates a fast, direct, or, at times, monotonous beat, commonly used in English for a song-like or driving quality. Common examples include ladder or tiger.
It's also a great shorthand, and if you write it the other way, you probably won't be accepted by the jazzers. Now, you want to be careful of just thinking of swing as long-short, because some people fall into a weird trap where they do play just that, but they're not actually playing swing. First off, you could play this. And that's definitely long-short, because the tenuto accents on the downbeats are long, and the staccato accents on the upbeats are short. But the onset of every beat is evenly spaced, every half a beat, so it's not swing. It's just straight eighth notes with long, short accents. In swing, the upbeat eighth notes come later in the beat. That's the thing that makes swing feel like swing. The upbeats are actually closer to the beat that comes after it rather than before it. So swing isn't just long short, it's long late. Now, once you've got the basic rhythmic concept under control, you need to remember that the word swing in music is quite powerful, because it doesn't just affect rhythm, there are a number of stylistic changes too. We'll get into some of the details on this in a moment, but as with so many things in music, it's really important to listen to great musicians and try to emulate and learn from their style. And you should also speak to your teacher about this, hopefully someone with experience in jazz and blues and swing music. And speaking of which, Now, stylistically, I find there are a couple of common traps that musicians can fall into. One is they over-articulate everything. If every note is short, it can make the music sound really stilted and what we sometimes call rickety-tickety. Or you might try to slur everything all together. But if everything is too smooth and connected, it can actually make the music sound kind of sloppy and uninteresting. Now, the specific execution of this will depend on what instrument you play, but a good general guideline is to emphasize the upbeat and slur to the downbeat. Also, in swing music, the quarter notes tend to be short and kind of punchy, with a bit of space between them. Longer notes get full value, but notes that start on the upbeat also often have an implied accent as well. Depending on the context, you might not see a lot of articulation markings on your music, and you'll be free to interpret it however you like. But in a larger ensemble like a jazz big band, the composer will probably be a lot more detailed in their expression markings, so that everyone knows what the expectations are, and they all sound good and consistent playing together. You don't tend
Trochaic meter is a poetic rhythm consisting of a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable, thumda, creating a falling or driving pace, such as in Once Upon a Midnight Dreary. It contrasts with iambic meter and does not use swing rhythm, which implies musical, irregular, or alternating long-short timing. Key aspects of trochaic meter. Falling sound, it sounds like a drum beat or a galloping horse, clip-clop, clip-clop. Examples: The Song of Hiawatha, Should You Ask Me, Whence These Stories, and the Witch's Chant in Macbeth, Double, Double Toil and Trouble. Trochaic verses. Other rhythms. Not swing. Swing rhythm is based on a long-short feel, often in triplets, whereas trochaic meter is a rigid dum-da-dum-da pattern. At Utti-Takastrat are 2n. Yes, the original Humpty Dumpty, as it is traditionally recited or sung in the English nursery rhyme tradition, is generally performed with a swing-like rhythm, or more precisely, with an unequal, swinging division of the notes that corresponds to the classic swing feel. The melody of Humpty Dumpty, as documented since 1870 by James William Eliot and in most contemporary versions, is written in 6/8 time, compound duple meter. This meter naturally lends itself to a triplet-based rhythmic feel, in which each beat is subdivided into 3 parts. This produces a galloping or skipping character, precisely what is called swing in jazz and popular music when applied to eighth notes in a 4/4 context. Key characteristics. The typical prosody and delivery follow a long-short pattern. For example, Humpty is long-short, Dumpty is long-short. This is the characteristic swing ratio, approximately 2:1 or triplet-like. Music educators and rhythm specialists explicitly refer to Humpty Dumpty as an example of swing rhythm when explaining the difference between swing and straight, equal, rhythms. It is frequently contrasted with Yankee Doodle, which is straight. Children reciting or singing the rhyme, including while skipping or clapping, almost invariably produce this uneven, bouncing timing. A strictly equal, straight, performance sounds unnatural and disrupts the traditional flow. Nuance. Although 6 out of 8 is not, strictly speaking, swing in the technical jazz sense, where swing usually refers to triplet-like eighth notes in 4 out of 4, the rhythm of Humpty Dumpty is consistently described as swing in both practical performance and pedagogical contexts. It shares the same triplet-based feel that underlies swing. Modern jazz compositions utiled Humpty Dumpty, such as Chick Corea's, sometimes deliberately build on this rhythmic concept, albeit within more complex structures. In summary, yes, the original and traditional Humpty D.
Long short because the tenuto accents on the downbeats are long and the staccato accents on the upbeats are short. But the onset of every beat is evenly spaced, every half a beat, so it's not swing. It's just straight eighth notes with long short accents. In swing, the upbeat eighth notes come later in the beat. That's the thing that makes swing feel like swing. The upbeats are actually closer to the beat that comes after it rather than before it. So swing isn't just long short, it's long late. Now, once
Jazz and swing. The most important musical element that differentiates jazz and swing from Western classical music is the feel. String players who have only studied classical music have a difficult time creating a convincing swing feel. Part of the reason for this is the inadequacy of notation. Most classical string players are trained to interpret the written page in the context of the classical genre. If you don't have any experience listening to and playing a swing feel, there is no amount of notation that will help you understand and execute it convincingly. Swing isn't exactly dotted eighths and 16th notes. It isn't exactly groups of triplets. It certainly isn't straight eighths, as it is often notated for players who are already initiated into the genre.
Hello, Mark Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore here. In this video, I'm going to talk about swing eighth notes, what they are and what they are not. And I have to admit, I'm a little self-conscious about being the one to do this video because it feels like this is information that should be widely available, really clearly explained by someone else. But when I look around, I'm not really happy with how I see the concept of swing eighth notes explained, so I'm going to give you my version. So, first of all, what are they not? Well, certainly they are not what we call straight eighth notes. They are not eighth notes in which they are exactly all the same length, exactly half a beat, exactly the same volume. So, I'm going to let MuseScore play you the perfect straight eighth notes because it's going to be machine perfect. And then I'll play you my maybe human version. So that's a melody by Charlie Parker played with those eighth notes completely straight, as accurate as a computer can do it. Now I'm going to do my version as accurate as this particular human can play those same straight eighth notes. So that's my rendition of completely straight eighth notes. Now I'm going to play you what I think of as swing eighth notes. In swing eighth notes, instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all the same, it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. The notes on the beat are going to be longer than the notes off the beat. Now everyone will tell you that about swing, but some people have gotten it in their heads that swing should mean something having to do with triplets, and this is what I want to dissuade you of. So I'm going to play my version of swing eighth notes with a long, short, long that feels about right to me at that tempo. I think I actually took that a little faster, right? And that's actually a point, that the actual ratio should kind of vary according to the tempo. But let's hear what triplets sound like, so you can hear that that's not what I played. That's not what I played. It's somewhere in between straight and triplets, right? It's just not the same. You can't calculate. I mean, you could play it and then get a computer to measure it, but that's not how we think. We don't think I'm going to play the first note exactly 60% of the beat. We just play what we feel. But in point of fact, it is somewhere closer to 60% of the beat. In a triplet, if we really did play this kind of triplet feel, one da 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 da. If I did that, then the first half, the first eighth of each pair would be 2/3 of the beat, 66%. Swing is somewhere more like 60%. Maybe it's 58, maybe it's 62, maybe it's 57. It all depends on maybe the tempo, your mood, and whatever else. So I'm going to let MuseScore play it at exactly 60. This is what it does by default. It's not bad at this tempo. So, not too bad. That's kind of swinging. If I turn the tempo up so that instead of 120, we're dealing with maybe more like 180, the triplets now sound ridiculously silly. Yeah, that's not swinging at all. The 60% might start to feel a little too much also. I don't know. That's something for you to figure out. You can play around, if you're in MuseScore, with different ratios to convince yourself of what the proper ratio should be. Maybe I turn it down to only 58% and try that. I don't know. It's maybe something like that. Now, there's another subtle aspect to the playback, and that has to do with maybe accenting the second half of each eighth note. But I guarantee as soon as you try to do that, it's going to sound silly. Yeah, it just sounds ridiculous if you try to do it. It's got to be one of these things you don't even try to do. It's one of these things you just sort of can't help doing. And realistically, it's not every single eighth note on the offbeat that gets the accent. It's ones like this one at the end of the phrase. Dat, be-dop, bebop. That's where that word comes from, is supposedly is from phrases like that, boo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-bebop. And it's that short note at the end of a phrase that's syncopated. That's the one that gets the kind of extra accent. Maybe not every single other eighth note, because that starts to sound a little silly, just like triplets sound silly. Anyhow, that is my lesson for you about swing eighth notes. It's really something you don't calculate, you don't count, you feel. You listen to a lot of jazz or music that has swing eighth notes, you get the sound of it in your head, and then it starts coming out naturally in your music. That is what swing eighth notes should be about.
But that was just for the melody. Let's do it to the entire song. You feel that long short rhythm. Punk, dunk, pa. Now this might remind you of triplets. You know, when the beat's divided to threes. That's because if we remove this middle guy from a triplet, you actually get a swing rhythm. The difference from swing though is that the triplet will always have this distance. Swing is more fluid. It could be here or here. It's a matter of feel. Some light swing or go heavier. Now this could get confused with being offbeat.
Jazz swing and triplet feels are distinct, as jazz swing relies on an uneven, fluid long-short articulation, 60% to 70% feel, rather than a rigid 2-to-1 triplet subdivision, 66% feel. While triplet notation is often used to approximate swing, true jazz phrasing is more nuanced, feeling more like a swing than a stiff calculation. Jazz swing, characterized by intentional unevenness, where the downbeat is longer and the upbeat is shorter, creating forward momentum. The exact ratio varies based on tempo and style, often favoring a feel closer to 60% for the first note. Triplets, a rigid division of one beat into 3 equal parts, 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio. The difference, a triplet feel can sound amateur or stiff in jazz, whereas true swing is more relaxed and less mechanical. Tempo dependency, at slower tempos, a triplet feel is more common, while at faster tempos, swing often approaches a straighter, less uneven rhythm. Using triplets to represent jazz swing is often considered musically incorrect or an oversimplification, as it creates a rigid, mechanical ricky-ticky feel rather than the fluid, uneven, and variable ratio, typically 60 to 70% long, of actual swing. True swing is rarely a precise 2-to-1 ratio and varies by tempo, whereas triplets are always 3-to-1 ratio. Triplet misconception, while commonly used for teaching, a triplet-based swing, e.g., quarter plus eighth, is too hard and mechanical compared to the relaxed, subtle lilt of experienced jazz players. Tempo dependence, at slow tempos, the swing ratio is much wider, higher, while at fast tempos, it approaches straight or even eighth notes, making a strict triplet notation incorrect for most tempos. Proper notation, modern jazz notation often prefers to write straight eighth notes with a swing indicator, allowing players to feel the appropriate ratio. Dotted rhythm error. Using dotted 8/16 notes is also incorrect, often resulting in a stiff classical sound. Summary of swing versus triplet. Triplet, 33% to 33% minus 33%, evenly divided. Swing, roughly 60 to 70%, downbeat, followed by 40 to 30%. Upbeat.
So, that's my rendition of completely straight eighth notes. Now I'm going to play you what I think of as swing eighth notes. In swing eighth notes, instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all the same, it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. The notes on the beat are going to be longer than the notes off the beat. Now everyone will tell you that about swing, but some people have gotten it in their heads that swing should mean something having to do with triplets, and this is what I want to dissuade you of. So I'm going to play my version of swing eighth notes with a long, short, long that feels about right to me at that tempo. I think I actually took that a little faster, right? And that's actually a point, that the actual ratio should kind of vary according to the tempo. But let's hear what triplets sound like, so you can hear that that's not what I played. That's not what I played. It's somewhere in between straight and triplets, right? It is not the same. You can't calculate. I mean, you could play it and then get a computer to measure it, but that's not how we think. We don't think I'm going to play the first note exactly 60% of the beat. We just play what we feel. But in point of fact, it is somewhere closer to 60% of the beat. In a triplet, if we really did play this kind of triplet feel, one, da, 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 da. If I did that, then the first half, the first eighth of each pair would be 2/3 of the beat, 66%. Swing is somewhere more like 60%. Maybe it's 58, maybe it's 62, maybe it's 57. It all depends on maybe the tempo, your mood, and whatever else. So I'm going to let...
Key differences. Structure. Triplets divide the beat into 3 equal parts, 1, 2, 3. Swing uses a 2-part division where the first note is longer than the second, long-short. Flexibility. Swing is fluid and changes with tempo. At faster tempos, swing notes become closer to straight, even eighths, whereas triplets remain rigid. Feel. Triplets are precise and often used as a specific musical figure, e.g., in classical or blues. Swing is a rhythmic groove or feeling that prioritizes flow over rigid timing. Application. While often described as triplet style, top jazz musicians rarely play pure triplet figures, preferring a more nuanced, uneven subdivision that is less strict. Comparison table. Triplet has a subdivision of 3 equal parts, usually written with a bracket. 3 where the rhythmic feel is rigid and exact. Jazz swing has a subdivision based on long-short, variable ratio, where the feel is fluid, lilting, and dancing.
Actually get a swing rhythm. The difference from swing though is that the triplet will always have this distance. Swing is more fluid. It could be here or here. It's a matter of feel. Some light.
Swing notation. Because of its roots, swing cannot be written accurately using conventional, Western European, notation. The most accurate notation for a series of swing eighth notes would be swing. 1. A quality of approach to playing that is the defining characteristic of the jazz swing style. Elusive and hard to define, swing is the combination of a driving rhythmic approach and cohesive ensemble work that results in energized, visceral dance music. 2. A long-short treatment of moving notes, called swung notes, that is instrumental in filling music with the rhythmic drive and irresistible energy characteristic to the jazz swing style. For string players, swing is accomplished by playing a lazy, elongated first note, followed by a jerked, short second note, most easily achieved above the middle of the bow with a very relaxed upper arm. Although swing is commonly explained to classically trained players as turning common time into 12/8s, with a triplet feeling for all eighth notes rather than a strict dotted eighth rhythm, this belies the subtlety of the swing rhythm, which has a natural elasticity that escapes any strictly proportional rhythmic notation.
And what distinguished it was that its syncopation wasn't predictable, but it became elasticated. This new breed of music was jazz, and the elastication of the syncopation, which took place over a period of about a decade, can, thanks to old recordings, be seen unfolding in front of our eyes. This type of syncopation came to be known as swing. Swing, in crude terms, is a kind of lag in the rhythm. The lead line almost gets left behind the main beat of the band. It's as if it's gradually loosening itself from the rigidity of the pulse. It's being cheeky, cocking a snoop at the authority of the drum beat. Indeed, mischievousness is one of the many seductive qualities that swing brings to music.
Right? So, you know, when you're able to play your jazz swing, one of the most important parts about mastering your jazz swing is learning how to adjust the degree of swing, because you can play a nice wide loose one or you can really tighten it up. but it's all the same swing beat.
American jazz critic Martin Williams said, "Jazz eighth notes, the jazz triplet, they are not the superficialities or the ornaments of a musical style. In jazz they have always been among the fundamentals. One of the unwritten, and undiscussed, laws of jazz has been that each of the great players has found his own way of pronouncing the triplet, expressed or implied in Roy Eldridge's triplet doesn't sound like Louis Armstrong's, Miles Davis's didn't sound like Dizzy Gillespie's. Lester Young's triplet was unlike Coleman Hawkins's, and Stan Getz's is unlike Lester Young's. This enormous abundance of individually varied rhythmic forms is among the most fascinating artistic outcomes of jazz. In keeping with the splendor of jazz's many rhythmic forms, there doesn't exist, up to the present day, any form of notation, graphic representation, and computer analysis capable of satisfactorily registering the subtlety of these rhythmic processes, which differ not just stylistically but also in terms of specific distinctions between groups and individuals."
That new information satisfied me perfectly. But as we'll see, that's only really the first step to understanding what swing really is. So you might ask, why isn't swing written out as a triplet? The reason is not because jazz musicians are sloppy or don't care about how music's notated. It's because there is no way to truly notate swing. Jazz educator Antonio Garcia suggests it's kind of like dictating how much seasoning to have in fine food, or what degree of colour to mix in a painting. We know they're right when we taste them or see them, but even what's right is subject not only to cultural traditions, but also to our own personal beliefs and experiences. Garcia goes on to suggest 3 key areas that go into refining a swing style. 1. The length of each eighth note. You might have a short first note and a long second, or a long first note and a short second, or both notes long, or any of a myriad of finely grained variations. 2. The accents. Typically it's the upbeat rather than the downbeat that gets the accent. But again, there are countless shades to play with. 3. The degree of swing, or what's known as the swing ratio. The swing ratio is the ratio between the long note and the short note. A ratio of 3 to 1 would effectively be a dotted rhythm like this. A ratio of 2 to 1 is what most people think of as swing, the triplet pattern. And a ratio of 1 to 1 is even eighth notes. If you listen to the cymbal in this example from Wynton Kelly's Skatin', you can hear he's playing towards the higher end of the spectrum at around a 3 to 1 ratio. Whereas this example from Art Blakey's Big Band has a more relaxed swing, a ratio of around 2 to 1. Most jazz performance exists somewhere between the 1 to 1 and 3 to 1 ratio, and this is perhaps above all the area where standard notation completely fails to capture the nuances at play. Listen to 2 jazz musicians talking, and soon enough you'll hear them using phrases like, "We need to sit more in the pocket." Now he's pulling back on the beat. Yeah, so give it a light swing, okay? Now what they're talking about are the microscopic changes in the placement of certain beats, what academics call microrhythms. Microrhythms are tiny, tiny distinctions in rhythm. They're not so much about a change of rhythm as about a change of feel. The first people to
The rhythm comes alive. It dances a little bit. So we can take that concept of the swing rhythm and apply it to any melody, or just about any melody, and turn that composition into a jazz performance, a jazz interpretation. And that gives it a jazz flavor. And so that swing element is one of the key things which defines jazz and one of the key elements in the language of jazz.
listen to jazz, it's going bum. Later on,
No,
the early jazz is just straight marching rhythm. Now you tell me what's the difference
does that
in the
sing,
Humpty
Andy,
Dumpty
Andy,
rhythm.
Andy, sing Humpty Dumpty to this.
Humpty
Sing that.
Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty
Look
Dumpty
how
had it
fast you
before.
got. Look how fast you got to do it to fit in. See how you got to fit in? Yeah, you can do it.
That, you know what the jazz swing is? The jazz swing, right?
Yeah.
I've been around this block too many times, rock too many rhymes.
Most times I come up with the flow first. You may have heard like people like he does his Rain Man in the studio because I'm like, I'm trying to work out the pockets and then I'll fill it with words. What Biggie had was a jazz pocket that we didn't really know we was listening to until later on. One of his neighbors was this like jazz musician who would take him to like shows and things like that. We knew Rakim was come from a jazz background, right? So we understood I got a artillery lyrical namo, down. So he's mimicking a horn. But Biggie was so unorthodox that it was like, Jesus. These that's just jazz, improv, what he was doing. I don't come from a...
What does one of the most legendary MCs have in common with a kid's playground? Swing. One of the defining characteristics of Rakim's exceptional flow is his careful use of a rhythmic technique called swing. And I love how he does it in his track, It's Been a Long Time.
They said I changed the times from the rhymes that I thought of.
If you peep the comments in my last video about the two concepts are related but distinct. So what exactly is swing and how can it make a difference to your rap flow? Let's get into it.
That's that rap science.
The rhythmic concept of swing has its roots in a style of jazz music developed in the late 1920s. The music was mainly performed by big bands or jazz orchestras. The ensembles usually included a brass section and a rhythm section. And the essence was to get people moving on the dance floor. The main characteristic of swing music is its rhythm and how it deviates from straight, unswung timing. To best understand it, let's visualize it. Consider this diagram representing eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we have what we call the on beats represented by the numbers which landed on the clicks and the off beats represented by the ands that landed off the clicks. We call each of these hits an eighth note because in a bar of 4 counts, there are 8 of them. Now let's say we were to just take the off beats and shift them slightly to the right. You get something that sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the same principle applies if we were to subdivide even further into 16th notes. The on beats are now represented by the numbers and the ands, whereas the off beats are represented by the E and the A. Again, shifting the off beats to the right will give us swung 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. This is essentially what swing comes down to. The degree of swing is the degree to which the off beats are shifted. Producers in the building should know what the deal is here. In our favorite DAWs, there's a swing control that does exactly that. And now we can understand the distinction between swing and micro timing. Let's jump back to my video on micro timing for a second. So instead of this, pop, 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 you get this. Pop, 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 pop. Micro timing deviations can affect any note and displace them from the grid by any amount. Swing is about the sound that results when only the off beats are displaced consistently. Now, there's kind of a standard swing degree. That's when you displace the off beats by an amount equivalent to where they would be if they were the last note of a triplet. And thus, sometimes swing feel and triplet feel are used synonymously. Not only that, but often triplets are interjected into swinging rhythms because they fit so perfectly. This is where it comes to rap. With the right amount of it, swing can add some funk and some bounce into your rap flow. Let me demonstrate the effect of swing using a 4-bar section from Rakim's track. I'll also contrast it with a micro-timed interpretation so you can hear the difference between the two techniques.
Follow procedures, the crowd couldn't wait to see this. Nobody been this long awaited since Jesus. Who wouldn't believe this? I heard the word on the street is I'm still one of the deepest on the mic since Adidas. Follow procedures, the crowd couldn't wait to see this. Nobody been this long awaited since Jesus. Who wouldn't believe this? I heard the word on the street is I'm still one of the deepest on the mic since Adidas.
Nas rhymes from the back of his throat. Biggie is a swinger. He swings like a horn player over jazz. B-I-G-P-O, P-P-A, no info for the D-E-A. He put more emphasis on the He's just spelling his name. But the flow, vicious. Pac, on the other hand.
I was initially trying to groom Chris to be a jazz artist because he was so talented. One of the things that we worked on was putting what a snare drum did in bebop drumming into the rhythm of a rhyme. Listen to Max Roach with Clifford Brown. Max has a very melodic way of playing the drums. He makes the rhythm into a melody. If you slow one of those ideas down like put some lyrics to that, you can hear that Notorious B.I.G. was accenting those notes and rhyming in a way that exudes all the finer qualities of a bebop drum solo. It's incredible.
I'd rather make a buck, drive a fat ass truck, grab the 9, 2 clips and run them up. Yes, flex after 2 or 3 Bexes, I wreck shit. What the fuck you expected? A fly guy? Well, fuck it, I'm a high guy. From Bed-Stuy putting the swelling on your eye. Your nose even, when I choke me, you stop breathing. When police come, I'm leaving. Peace and love. Here we go.